Welcome to another version of Tuesday Tapestry. Today we're going to talk about the Bishop's document, Faithful Citizenship. And in order to help us do that, I'm very pleased to have with us Mrs. Jean Hill, who's the Director of our Peace and Justice Commission for the Diocese of Salt Lake City, and also who is our government liaison for the diocese. Also we have Dr. Paul White, who is a parishioner at St. Catherine Newman Center in Parish, and also very active in that parish. And I think, Doctor, you were just elected to what?
I was just elected as the moderator for our lay Dominican chapter.
Wonderful. Well, congratulations. That's wonderful. I see you've got your Dominican cross on, so that's good for you. That's great. Today we're going to take a little bit of time then to go into faithful citizenship. And I think it's good that we are, because this is a document that sometimes is misunderstood. I'm not sure why. I think possibly because going way back in our minds, we have it in our United States of American DNA that there's a separation between church and state. And that the church talks about church things, the state talks about state things, and we don't commingle the two. But actually, the separation of church and state is a very complicated concept, but it does not mean that the church and the state cannot work together to accomplish good, and they often do. Nor does it mean that the church cannot participate in government in very positive ways that can work for the common good. The church actually has not only a right, but an obligation to be in the public square. In the New Roman Missal, you'll notice that all the dismissals that either the priest or the deacon give, they all begin with the word go. Go, the Mass is ended. Go and announce the gospel. Go in peace. Catholic social teaching makes it very clear that all Catholics have a moral responsibility to participate in a positive way in the political and government process. And so today we're going to take a little bit of a look at what that means and what faithful citizenship is all about. So let me start by asking you, Jean, a little bit, just in an overarching kind of a way, this document, Faithful Citizenship, that was authored by the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops, what is its purpose? What is it really saying, just in a nutshell, and then we can unpack it later.
The document itself is a guide for Catholics as they're trying to form their voting decisions. So it's not about telling you who to vote for or what issues you should be concerned about. It's about walking you through Catholic social teaching, walking you through important issues for Catholics, and helping you figure out which candidate is the one that you want to vote for based on that fully formed conscience and rooted in Catholic teaching.
For this political agenda, or that political agenda, is simply giving our Catholics the fundamental teachings that they need to apply to a given circumstance.
Right, and probably the most, one of the more powerful statements in the document is that we shouldn't just be voting based on what a party tells us. We need to really think through our choices and our options and make that decision, each individual for themselves, again based on that moral grounding of the Catholic Church.
And it's interesting, if you look at it from a historical perspective, the Catholic Church is about 2,000 years old. The United States is a little over 200 years old. So there's a lot of wisdom, a lot of tradition, a lot of experience. The Church, guided by the Holy Spirit, and in tandem with the teaching magisterium, over the centuries has distilled this wonderful wealth of tradition and principles that really will assist Catholics in making what can sometimes be some very difficult decisions.
And it is amazing that that 2,000-year history still is extremely relevant for all of our modern day issues. There's great guidance. You can't really find an issue that you can't find guidance within the teaching to help you discern what is my proper response to this.
Right. Makes sense too, because our society is so new and so modern, so many things are coming up. Medical science, for example, look at stem cells and things of this nature, that it would be impossible really to expect, say, for example, just take the Bible, to have anticipated all of these various applications of science. But the principles are there to help us make these decisions.
Right.
Let me ask you, Doctor, what, in your view, if I may ask you more personally, what has this document, Faithful Citizenship, meant for you personally? just like kind of interviewing a Catholic in the pews, so to speak? What does it mean for you?
Well, it's always been a very good, as Gene was saying, it's a good guide, it's a good source for reminding me when I'm thinking about voting, when I'm thinking about working in the public sphere, just in general, of the teachings, the philosophy, the issues that I should be thinking through and considering when making my decisions. Mm-hmm. And that's for voting, that's for if I'm donating money to any cause, to working toward any cause. I like to go back and look at the document from time to time to give me that grounding of if I'm disagreeing with someone, is it because of the way I'm feeling? Is it because of the teachings, the tradition, or some other factor that could be influencing me? So it's a good source of giving us a foundation for taking those next steps as faithful citizens.
Right, right. And what I like about what you're both saying is that you're the ones doing the thinking. You're the ones who are processing this. You're applying principles. You're weighing this value and that value, which is really the polar opposite of just listening to somebody on the radio and just accepting what they're saying, hook, line, and sinker, without really analyzing. I think in a celebrity society such as ours, it's not uncommon for somebody to follow a particular talk show host and say, well, I agree with her, I agree with him. And then whatever they say, they just take it without saying, no, wait a minute, some of what they say has value, some does not. I agree with something than others. So we have to own, I think the church is saying very clearly, we have the responsibility for forming our consciences properly, and we have the responsibility for making an informed decision when we go into the voting booth.
And the document recognizes that that isn't easy, but those hard choices are what we are expected to work through and decide for ourselves. How do you work through, if you have two candidates who neither one of them will fully fit into Catholic teaching, how do you decide between those candidates? Mm-hmm. And there are a number of other organizations and special interest groups that will say you have to do it this way, mm-hmm. but that's not our Catholic teaching. Our teaching is you must use your foundation, your Catholic foundation, to make those decisions on your own.
Mm-hmm. And frankly, that's not easy. I mean, I suppose it's easier just to say, well, I like X, or I like Y, what he mm-hmm. says, what she says, and I'm just going to do that. You know, I notice I get this in the mail around voting time. You know, here's what this party recommends, vote for these people, vote for these issues.
Right.
And people like that. It's simple. You say, oh, good, I'm just take this I'm Democrat or I'm Republican, I'm just going to vote the party. It's a lot harder to have to think it through and to say, well, this candidate thinks this, but this candidate thinks that. Let me ask you, what do you do? What would faithful citizenship say? And I think you've already said it, but maybe we can just say it another way. But, you know, suppose one candidate is against church teaching on a life issue, mm-hmm. but then the other candidate is against church teaching on another issue. And so what would go into that decision-making process?
Well, there's a very good statement in the document that basically you as a voter cannot vote to support an intrinsic evil, mm-hmm. which is, you know, they're not listed out as these are the evils, but certainly abortion is one of those, racism is one of those, and I think that gets lost in our debates a lot of times. Torture and unjust warfare are intrinsic evils. But your candidate may support an intrinsic evil as long as your intent isn't to support that evil, and you think that, you know, there are other ways for you to help the candidate reevaluate those points of view, or they're strong on other life-related issues that help you say this person really can't affect the intrinsic evil that they're looking at, but they can affect these other issues where I do agree with them and they are in compliance with Catholic teaching, and so that's the person I'm going to vote for. Mm-hmm. But it does say, you know, not voting is a very serious decision. And as Catholics, we must vote. So that option should not be used unless it truly is your only option.
Right.
And I was going to say, along those lines, I like that it also states that having one or two issues should not blind you to the other issues. So just because you may put one issue above others, if the candidate's agreeing with you on that issue, but goes against the other issues that are in our social justice teachings in the Catholic Church, that doesn't, it's not that one outweighs all the others, that you have to take all of them into account
Right.
and make an informed decision about how you're going to proceed.
Exactly. So one candidate might be, say, for euthanasia, another candidate might be for the death penalty, and so I've got to decide, there's no one perfect candidate, ever. I mean, as long as we're on this side of the veil, we don't know perfection. So I've got to make a determination and do my best. That way, you remind me, both of you, that too, that we do live in a pluralistic society, and that there are many values, there are many issues out there, and it is complicated, and it gets more and more complicated as time goes on. But this is all the more reason to read, to study, to pray, to reflect, to talk to people in the parish, to talk to your parish priest, to talk to lay ecclesial leaders, to try to get sounding boards that are responsible to help us to make these decisions.